Hi, my name is LinkParikh. I am the founder of Rocket Technology, and we are here on East Main Street with our full headquarters and laboratories for advanced technologies and IBM Innovation Lab for Commonwealth of Virginia agencies and the DoD and NASA. We also serve the Fortune 500 companies, a lot of the headquarters around here, and we have a lot of experience being here, 25 years in Richmond, and across two companies, Parikh Advanced Systems and this company. And in the last company, we actually delivered on time, on budget, and all requirements met for a project for VDOT over 3 years. And we actually delivered it at 3 p.m. on the day it was due to dropping customers. And it was really exciting. So we invented the world's first hauling permit system for overweight truck permitting. The reason why I'm telling you that is a lot of our approaches and techniques were manual back then, and we still got there, but it took longer. We still got there at 15% the cost of the RFIs from large integrators. So that number 15% will pop up a lot today. So why are we here? We're going to talk about the delivery of engineered projects in the 21st century. And that means things are going to change. And they're going to change in terms of people getting on top of us to say, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. Highly complex, little money or a lot of money, and a very large integrated effort that basically is going to be difficult to handle. And probably including a lot of new technologies, which is going to be very difficult to integrate. So we have a lot of things coming down the pike that's going to make it hard. Probably budget will be a big one with the way things are going. Also, remote is going to be even more important. So we now are going to focus on completely remote platforms. Speaking of platforms, let's talk about how we can be a 21st century executive rather than a 20th century one. And I'm going to show you. You're the hero, I'm the guide. That's what we do. This is all we do. And we're going to show you how that works. So today, leaders are becoming more and more responsible for integrating across lots of different types of technologies and requirements and specs that in the past we may not have done, and certainly all kinds of different types of contractors and subcontractors. And we need to figure out how to get those costs down and how we can ensure that we model a RFP that's going to end up with customer acceptance, but also that we're going to be able to do it at a lower cost and a higher precision. So we're ensured quality of deliverables. So it's very difficult, as I mentioned earlier, to get on time, on budget, and certainly lower costs. But this is where it starts. So it starts when a customer says, I want you to do this. It may be someone at the legislature. It may be somebody at the agency. How do we do it today? A lot of paper. And even when we type it on our inside of our computers here, we still use English language. And it's very difficult to take that and build something from it without a lot of rework or a lot of money. So what we're going to do is talk about how we're going to solve some of those. These technologies have been around for now 10 years, and planes, trains, and automobiles and bridges are being built. So let's now take a look at how the Commonwealth of Virginia could improve on what it's doing already with similar tools already in-house for new use cases, basically building things, construction or software or IoT devices like cameras, how to create a network like that. So let's start thinking about what we really need to do that. So in that light, we want to have a model of how we actually do our jobs. How do we actually acquire these things? What is the process? What is the program process? What is the work breakdown of the things that we need to do that we're going to put in the RFP? And that acquisition model is very important, what we call an operations model. And that way, when the project actually starts, everybody knows what to do. It's a one button shove into the system. So instead of all this paper and binders, we're going to get rid of binders. Binders are no good. So we're going to move into that. So this is the customer contract. All right. In the Army Navy world, as PEOs, you may have agency heads here. So what we want to do is figure out how to capture customer directives and analyze them and make packages of them. For example, they may be emails, specs from another project. We may want to have stories or epics, use cases, things about bills of materials that we've used in the past, old architecture blueprints, models. So we may have a lot of things that we have in the past. I'm going to link them all together and say, hey, here is some of the early stuff that we're going to look at, right? And we're going to connect them together. You may have data or assets, and of course, acceptance criteria, the performance. So we haven't even done anything except envisioned our deliverable. And now we're going to start collaborating on it, right? We're going to be able to see ways to find important information and collaborate it with other people. And so that's really an opportunity for us to cut time and cost and actually determine exactly what that prime or lead system integrator is supposed to do. A lot of times we give them things to do that are expensive that they shouldn't be doing. And then how do we actually accept them? Well, what is our test plan? How do we know when we're done? So that's part of the customer contract, and we're going to do that in an organized manner. Here's another thing that we have to think about is how we're actually going to acquire and pay for it. And doing different kinds of modeling and platform collaboration, and you'll hear me say those two things over and over, we'll be able to put everything on one platform and link them together. You'll hear linkage, that word, so that when I do a search, I'm not searching for words. I'm actually searching for things that make a difference or link together, critical things, which we call impact analysis. So if I'm a procurement person working on the RFP or doing an evaluation, I can actually use that for that purpose. We actually happen to have a source selection module on top of this that you can use. It was invented by the Navy that we created. And that's sort of an aside. So if you want to speed by 3x your source selection evaluation, you want to snap that on as well. So collaboration on a platform, what the heck is it? So you can imagine we have a life cycle, right? We created the justifications, the requirements, time to laws and policies, LRPGs, laws, regulations, policies, guidance, and other specifications and other things that are out there, maybe in other servers. We want to link them together. We want to tie them to our requirements and specs. We want to tie them to derived requirements. And of course, we want to tie them to blueprint elements or architecture, and to tie those to the testing that we're going to do, and have all of that tied to your workflow and your project. Now with that, all those things linked together, you'll be able to manage the project faster, in some cases double time, which also means a lot of cost reduction, which could mean 25% less cost on a $500 million project or a $10 million project. Now imagine that. And if you actually allow the vendors to log in, you're going to have even more capability. Obviously, you're identifying limited permissions, but instead of passing Excel spreadsheets around, you work in the tool, and they're not going to make mistakes. Testing is something we talked about, and how do we know when we're done? Let's know that before we do it. So each test or acceptance or permit or whatever it is that you need is in the system and is tied to all of these requirements and specs we talked about, and also tied to the elements in the architecture or blueprint. So at all times, we know that if something doesn't work, we can go back and trace all that up and manage our change. Change management is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and we can definitely talk about that, because right now, the amount of effort it takes to get a bad answer is significant. In almost every engineering project, change management is the bad guy. And what happens is rework. The real bad guy is rework. So we can eliminate a lot of that by two ways. One is we can use the model to ask questions and say, what would happen if I changed this? Tell me all the subcontractors that are affected, all the bill of materials, projects. So and configuration, configuration A. So how can we do that? Very simply, we can create a model that is visual, that's tied together. And of course, those are also tied to things like requirements and specs and things like that. Um, the goal is to make your life easier, but more importantly, to make it accurate. You don't want an embarrassment and making a blunder. This is all about decision support. The other part of change management, oh, we have numbers here. So we were able to get change management done at 20 times faster. So imagine that all of the little steps you take to pass a document over to another person, another desk, passing around spreadsheets, etc. Working on this platform will speed up your change management 20x. It'll also improve your precision of the right answer 3x. It'll improve the precision of the data that you're looking at to make that decision from 30% to near 100%. All of this is documented and works well and has been rolled out. So MBSE is model-based systems engineering, which is something that has been around for a while, and we want to use it in your case in what we're doing today. So, well, again, it's basically everything I just told you about models that work together. For example, what is the mission of this project? What are the capabilities we're providing? And then you break it down into the operations, the people, the platform, the techs, and all of the data that work together to make that work in a phased configuration. So right there, you can't put it on one sheet of paper no matter how well you draw it up. It's going to be many different views. It's almost like a giant internet or a web. But we do that today. We do that with Microsoft Office projects or whatever product you use, passing them around in a highly manual way. So a lot of things that take less than a second are taking 2 weeks. So that's what the modeling capability gives you. It can predict what you're going to see when you make that change, but can also help you identify what change you should make and agree on. And you can pass that around to all the new vendors that you have that are saying, okay, you asked us to do this, now you're asking us to do this, and agree on what it costs to make the change, if anything. Well, COVID has occurred and a lot of people are working remotely. Moving forward, that may be a new normal, maybe not. But what it can do with platforms like this, which are all remote and all web-based, anyone who can use Amazon.com can use these. They're all stateless like that. You can start looking at bringing in people from around the world to say, hey, at this time in this place, for this money, I want this guy or a gal who has these capabilities and skill sets, and I want them on my team. The amount of capability that you'll get just from having remote capabilities for a full program lifecycle is enormous. The other great thing about it is you can ensure concurrency. So things that are happening in dependent or related projects that rely on some of your projects, you can have concurrency and be in sync with them all on the same platform. That's really huge. And the cost of that rework is 700 times than if you got it right the first time. That's a big number. We're also looking at sustainability and maintainability. So you don't want to make mistakes during your project and certainly not during the beginning of the project. So you want to understand what those maintainabilities and sustainabilities are and bake them in. Well, we talk a lot about AI, and frankly, a lot of people don't know how to spell it, or everybody does know what it is in their own mind. And, I'll give them that. It is what it is. Well, we now have to take it to something useful, so we'll just have to start defining it in some way. And what the industry has come out with is a couple things. One is, can we create insights on what's really going on in a way that we can't really look at today, or it takes too long? And can we look at prediction in a way that you can't do today, no matter how many thousands of programmers you have, or technical people, or project analysts, business analysts, but you really will never know. Unknown unknowns. How do we get that? So artificial intelligence allows you to do some of that in certain ways. And we try to make it simple for you.